So I started to work with this formula, which ended up being pure magic. It really is. And it has helped job seekers at all career levels in Canada and around the world to land their next job. So here it is.
Hey there, it's me, Lydia May, a proud Canadian immigrant and a firm believer in the power of a positive mindset. I want to have honest conversations with successful immigrants about their stories, insights, and what it really takes to thrive in your new home. Get ready to warm up to Canada. Welcome to the Ice to Nice podcast. Hi everyone, this episode is for anyone trying to land a job in Canada, especially if you are a newcomer figuring out how resumes and interviews work here. My guest is Sheila Musgrove, the founder of award-winning tech recruitment and the author of the best-selling book Hired. Sheila has been named one of Canada's top 100 women entrepreneurs multiple times, and her book was even translated into Ukrainian to help newcomers. In this episode, we talk about what actually works in Canadian resumes, how to stand out in interviews, and the biggest mistakes newcomers often make. Sheila also shares powerful tips on negotiating salary and following up without sounding desperate. You're going to walk away with tips you can actually use. So let's dive in. Hi, Sheila. So nice to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure. Thanks for reaching out.
So I was checking your profile and of course I was gathering some information on you as well. So your statement that 80% of resumes fail within 11 seconds.
That is it. 11 seconds. That's all the time that you get. And people think that we read resumes word for word, a bit like how you would devour a sci-fi or a romance novel. Hang on, every word. We absolutely don't. So in those 11 seconds, we skim. So there's very surprising things don't get read in those 11 seconds.
So then my question to you.
Yes.
So because my podcast mostly is for immigrants, right? So let's say if somebody is brand new to Canada or they have been here for a while, how they can get into that 20% in your opinion?
Yeah, so it's the same advice whether it's for newcomers or anyone. The challenge is that most people are still given really, really outdated resume advice. So the outdated resume advice, I actually call those resumes rusty. So a rusty resume is the type of resume that's filled with 1 or 2 or 3 pages of bullets that describe your functional job duties. Does nothing to get you noticed. Everybody does it. So the advice to your viewers is don't do that. So don't do that. So we'll talk about that. But I think what's interesting is what actually doesn't get read in those 11 seconds. Do you want to know what they are?
Of course.
Okay.
Because, I'm an immigrant myself and I'm happy with my job, but who knows?
Always be looking. Always. So the things that get zero attention in those first 11 seconds, lots of these will surprise you. First one, cover letters. Cover letters. Everyone spends so much time writing the perfect cover letter. Most times, here's the provision, unless it's specifically requested, cover letters probably will never get read. Because when you upload your resume to an applicant tracking system, that's upload versus email, your resume and cover letter go into 2 completely different buckets. So if I'm the hiring manager coming in on a Monday morning, there's 250 new resumes. I'm only going to go down the resume tab. I'm never going to open the cover letter tab. So now, if you feel that your resume isn't, or your application isn't complete without a resume or without a cover letter, do it by all means. But make sure you include the things like your name, your telephone number, your email address. Make sure that those are also in your resume. That's a common mistake when people do cover letters. Yeah. So the second thing that gets zero attention in those first 11 seconds, target position. Now, I'm a huge fan of a target position on a resume, but what most people do is something that doesn't get any attention. So what they write is, I would like a rewarding and demanding career within a growth-oriented industry with strong corporate social responsibility. I have no idea. Do you want to be the receptionist or the accounts payable manager? So I'm a fan of target position, but honestly, it needs to be targeted. Here's the answer. It needs to be the exact position title of the job you're applying on. End of story. So
yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But like my
yeah,
curiosity though, because I
yeah,
have a lot of guests on my own podcast, and I've had some HR professionals as well,
yes,
and they say that they do read a cover
yes,
letter, but later on in the process. So, for example, even like myself, once
yeah,
I had to hire a person, and I had like two candidates
yeah,
who made it to the final
sure.
round, and I couldn't decide. And then I actually did read their
Okay.
cover letters, and then like in this way, like it helped me to decide who was more passionate
Yeah,
about the job. So do you think like, so of course in the first round, like those
yeah,
cover letters are not important, but what about the second round, or also when some
yeah.
job postings, they specify that please submit your cover
Then
letter as
do.
well?
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
absolutely. If the cover letter is requested, do it by all means. And if you feel that, well, maybe there's a chance it will get read, do it. But I find that most seekers spend way too much time on the cover letter. The reason I don't read them, and a lot of my industry colleagues don't read them, is that they sound all the same. I'm hardworking. I'm passionate. I am going to be a team player. I'm blah, blah, blah. It sounds exactly the same as every other letter. That's why I don't read them. But I do have a chapter in the book on actually how to write clever, how to write clever cover letters if you would like to write one. So that's the problem with cover letters, is that they do look all the same.
Okay,
So,
and it
yeah,
makes a lot of sense,
yeah,
because you want to see like real person,
yeah.
but not a chat GPT generated cover letter, right?
We can spot those a mile
Yeah.
away.
Like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
do you know so can you share how you can spot that once as well? Because sometimes when
Yeah.
people they ask me and I tell them, well, I came to Canada in 2014 before ChatGPT was
Yes.
in the market, and it was very hard for me.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, oh my god, I need to write a cover letter. Like, does it sound good? How many mistakes I made
Yes.
and everything. With ChatGPT, things seems easier, but I
Right.
always tell you have to be sure that it sounds like you, that it's very authentic.
Absolutely. I mean, ChatGPT is a wonderful, wonderful tool, but you still have to, it's all like the basics in computers, garbage in, garbage out. So if you give it a not so great cover letter, well, you're not giving the technology much to work with. So it's a tool. You can't just write in ChatGPT, write a great cover letter. It's going to churn out a generic cover letter that will not get read. So it's a tool. It is a
I
tool.
see. And it
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. And in these days, I do believe, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, that in some way it's easier to get a first interview, because if somebody uses ChatGPT, they
Yes.
use the specific words, then it's easier for them. But at the same time, just recently I was attending an event and I met a person there who told me, you know what, it's not a problem for me to get an interview, but the problem for me to get a second one, because and then I looked at him and asked him, if you don't mind me, can I just try to guess? Are you an introvert? And the person told me, yes, I'm an introvert. And then I was like, what position are you applying to? And he said, I'm applying for a customer service position. And then I looked at him and I said, listen, I might be wrong, but my personal approach here, so you're an introvert, so you're not big on a small talk. And then you're applying for customer service position. Yes, you can pass your first test, right? When you work with ChatGPT, and it gives you this first interview chance. And then when people see you, they see that you're not hey, how are you? How your days is going? So of course it's hard for them to determine that you would be the best fit for the position. So and I think a lot of people are wondering, especially okay, so they can learn how to write a perfect resume and they can get their first interview, but what about the second one?
Right.
So are there any techniques you can share with our viewers?
Yes, absolutely. So if we go back to, there is the biggest mistake that everyone makes is that rusty resume with the 1 or 2 or 3 pages of bullets, or it's also just called a functional resume. A functional resume doesn't do anything to get you noticed, and it makes interviews really hard, because in an interview, an interviewer will say to you, great, tell me about your current position, previous and previous. Or they may say to you, bring your entire resume to life for me. That's that's heart stopping for most job seekers because it's a really hard question to answer. So that will tie into the resume formula that I wrote about. So the reason I wrote the resume formula, it's called the two-step resume formula, and it ties back into interviews. So the two-step resume formula is one that I discovered after coaching hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people in my recruitment firm that were really talented people, but they were struggling, one, to even get that first phone call or get past the pre-screen or get past the first interview. So I started to work with this formula, which ended up being pure magic. It really is. And it has helped job seekers at all career levels in Canada and around the world to land their next job. So here it is. There's 2 steps. Step 1 in the formula is 1 to 3 sentences that answer the following questions. Number 1, what level do you report to by title? Next, briefly, 5 bullets is not brief. Briefly, what is or was your job? What's your scope or territory if applicable? And how many other people did the same job? So 1 to 3 sentences answer those 4 questions. Then step 2, it's all about results. So I coach job seekers, write the words key successes, bold, underline, and then that's where bullets are okay. So before you delete every one of those mind-numbing bullets that I call them, the functional job duties, ask yourself, is there something I could measure? How big, how much, how many? What we're looking for are numbers, percentages, and rankings. So let me give you an example. For example, if you are a receptionist, one of your bullets, of course, will be answer all incoming calls, respond to all incoming visitors. So let's ask how big, how much, how many. So if you say to a receptionist, well, how many calls per day? To how many memorized extensions? All of a sudden, we can turn that bullet into a success to say, daily, I answer over 100 incoming phone calls, seamlessly transferred to 27 memorized extensions. So that all of a sudden has impact. Because if we don't put the numbers, percentages, rankings, well, maybe there's 1 phone call that comes in per day.
Yeah,
well,
so
are you going to be a fit? Probably not. So it's all about numbers. And in my book, I worked with a local career college here to identify what are the things you can measure? And we went through 14 different disciplines, everything from EMT, finance, engineering, legal, administrative, project management, and we even trades. We went through what are the things that you can measure on your resume? Because if you put results on your resume, you become really easy to hire because you've just said to a hiring manager, look, under every one of my jobs, I've demonstrated success. And whether it is number of phone calls or awards, achievements, growth, there's lots of different things that can be measured. You become really easy to hire because I know what you're going to deliver.
And and I can echo that 100% because once in my career I was let go. And when I was let go, I thought, oh my God, now it will take me a lot of time to land my next job. But what happened? So I was lucky enough, and my company, which let me go, actually, they connected me with a career coach.
Okay.
And that career coach sounded exactly like you. So basically, I was telling her, hey, so I've delivered like these presentations to our clients. And then actually was like, so were those clients from 5 different countries? I said, yes, they were from 5 different countries. So she said, okay. And then she put in, so like she has delivered like info sessions to countries from like all over the world, something right. So she definitely played with the wording. And like when my resume was tailored by her, like then actually I started receiving a lot of calls. And even it was during pandemic, it was during COVID, but I remember I landed like 5 like interviews like for 1 or 2 weeks. And at the beginning I was like, oh my God, it will take me forever to get an interview. And like you might be surprised, but I'm that person who doesn't do networking when like I need a job. So I do networking for a living. But when it comes to find a job, I think my cultural thing appears here. And then I'm like, I'm too proud proud to say, oh, I'm open.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And then like through Indeed, I got those like calls through Indeed, and people think that it's impossible to get those calls. Like, but I do believe that my resume work and that career and coach just was wonderful. And she helped me with that. And it did change my career as well. And now I know exactly what you've said. So you need to look at this differently. You cannot just look at this, oh, like I was a receptionist, and you cannot just not to put things what you have achieved, right?
Yeah. Very, very important. And that's where most resumes fail, is that they're just on function versus results. Because you'll remember behavioral based interviews, which I have a chapter on that in my book, and I call them the dreaded "tell me about a time" questions. I'm not a fan of behavioral based interview questions because they rarely work. The reason is that if you're not a skilled interviewer, when I say, great, tell me about a time where you disagreed with they tend to be negative. Tell me about a time when you disagreed with the direction of the organization. Tell me about a time when you missed your targets, missed your goal. I don't want to know necessarily those few rare negative moments. I want to know, where have you excelled? Where are the positive moments? So that's why I do say to job seekers, prepare for them. But if you write your resume in my 2-step resume formula, you are going to have more examples on enabled that will allow you to answer any behavioral based interview question out there. So with that formula, it absolutely helps, to go back to your earlier question, job seekers with interviews, because interviews are daunting. They're very daunting and stressful. And if you're not interviewing in your native language, that's stressful as well. So there's a full chapter, and I remember writing the first chapter in almost 10 years ago on interviews. And I thought, why do job seekers find interviews so difficult when they're so incredibly easy? And I had a big aha that morning. When a hiring manager says, great, I want to know about this and previous every one of your jobs, they just say, tell me about your job. And I hope you're going to tell me something interesting. And I can tell you, after doing thousands of interviews, that rarely happens. I'll be honest. So I always stop job seekers and say, okay, let's break it down. What we're actually looking for when we say, tell me about each of your jobs, are the answer to 5 questions, but no hiring manager asks them. What they're looking to learn is, what level did you report to by title? Briefly, what is or was your job? What's your scope? How many other people did exactly the same thing? And tell me, where were you successful? Which is the 2-step resume formula. So if your viewers write their resume in that 2-step resume formula, essentially, they've got all the answers to the interview test. All that they have to do is rehearse. And particularly for newcomers, because you are working in a different language, preparation is everything. So in the interview chapter, I talk about why it's so incredibly important to rehearse what you're going to say out loud. And the reason you want to rehearse out loud, it commits everything to your short-term memory. And in a stressful situation like an interview, your short-term memory is never going to fail you. Never. I've had candidates say, I had the most incredible memory recall. Like, I was remembering details that I could hear myself, and I was talking faster than I could remember. But in contrast, if you say, I lived these jobs, I know it, this is my history, and don't rehearse, that's a recipe for a disaster interview, because everything's sitting in your long-term memory. Your long-term memory in a stressful situation like an interview doesn't do you any favors. So if I say to you, great, tell me what you were doing 10 years ago, chances are what you'll say is, oh gosh, that was a long time ago. I can't remember. The minute you say in an interview, I can't remember, the interview is done, because you've just said, I have a lousy memory. and it's over at that point. So to your earlier question, how do you get the second interview? You need to nail the first one. That's why you're like, honestly, that's why
Which
you're not
makes
getting
a lot of sense,
that's why
right?
you're not getting a second interview, is because your first interview probably didn't go well. If you were nervous, if you weren't able to articulate and highlight your background and successes, the question to nail in the first interview is that walk me through every single one of your jobs. Two things happen. One, either the candidate says, well, I was in customer service. That's it. Or they go into, well, at 9:30 on a Monday, I would do this, and at 10 o'clock, I would do this. And they go into such granular detail that, oh my gosh. So neither of those are the right answer. That's the real benefit to my two-step resume formula, is it keeps you high level. So when you do the work of creating the resume based on that formula, it's not easy. I'll be honest, it sounds really easy, but when you get pen to paper, fingers on keyboard, it's not the easiest to do. It takes some work, but it is well worth it, because when you get into that interview, you will be compared to all of those other applicants that came in and just hoped that something would say something that would interest you. And that rarely happens.
100%. And this is actually amazing. I've never thought about this like this way, right? Specifically. But also, like, I wanted to ask you, like, how, like, for example, in my presentations and in my videos, I always tell that soft skills are very important because, and also understanding. So if you're applying for a job, like to be a customer service representative, so you need to have some soft skills, because look around. So if you go to every place, right? So how much attention do you pay to those soft skills? For example, many women, when they come to Canada, so for example, I'm originally from Russia, so we don't shake hands. So it's just for men. So like, and like, do you pay attention to those small details? If a handshake was a proper one, if like a smile was the proper one, or if some like, hey, how your day is going? How's the weather today or something? Do you pay attention to those?
100%. Every bit counts. From the minute that hiring manager walks out to the reception area to greet you, we gauge the handshake. We gauge, of course, people are nervous. So most hiring managers are very understanding, and that's why they do the little bit of small talk. Did you find us okay? Can I get you a glass of water? Come on in. Let's sit down, chat, and think, did you find us okay? We're trying to make you feel at ease. But yeah, all of those things matter, because that's the everyday. How is this person going to interact with the team? Are they going to smile? Are they going to be social? Are they going to fit within the culture? Now, that being said, there's organizations where everyone is very individual. Great, you may pass each other in the hallway, say good morning, and then go to your cubicle and never chat to anyone. So it comes down to what is the culture of the company as well. But all of those things do matter. They absolutely, they do. And I've wrote about some of the funny story. I believe in humor in a book. So a resume book need not be painful. So there's humor in there, and I talk about things like a handshake are very, very important, and they're cultural nuances to Canada, which I didn't realize. Thank you for sharing that. That's not commonplace in Russia. So those things all become part of the package. So it's as much as what you are saying, to how you are sitting, to how you are, your eye contact, very important. Are you looking down? Are you looking away? All of those things are really important.
I've heard that there is so some people, like they were saying, and sometimes it's fine to have some notes. So for example, like how your approach to that, like in terms, if a candidate like brings some piece of paper, like with some notes.
Yeah. So certainly, I think it's always a good idea to, one, bring a copy of your resume. So I've had so many nervous candidates say, oh my gosh, I forgot my resume. And I'm writing notes on their resume, and they reach across the table and take my copy. Never do that. Never do that.
Because I cannot imagine. Sorry, what did you write there?
So don't do that. So bring your own copy. Definitely. You can write down the end of interview questions. And that's when I cover a lot of those in the book. What you want to avoid at the end of the interview are the panic end of interview questions, which are, what's the salary? How many weeks vacation? What are the benefits? So those are panic questions. So think about very good questions to ask. Like, tell me, what would training look like if successful in this organization? If I joined the organization in customer service, what would the next 3 to 5 years look like? Ask some good questions, write those down. You don't have to remember those. There's enough to remember in an interview. Bring those with you, pull those out of your portfolio at the end of the interview. You can also certainly do have a copy of the job description with you. That's good to have. And any other company info that again, it just shows that you've made some effort. Now, other notes, if you write your resume based on the two-step resume formula, everything you need is going to be on your resume. So just bring it with you. Yeah.
What about a lot of new people, they ask me when they apply for a job in Canada, they ask me why people ask me what my salary expectation is.
Yeah.
Even if in a job description it says.
Yes.
So let's say from 60 to 70. So what should I say?
Yeah. So I covered that.
Yeah.
So normally so that leads me to, we should talk about the telephone pre-screen, which is a critical part. So in the pre-screen, which I always say to people, if you are driving down the highway, if you're in the mall, if you are in the middle of a run, don't answer your phone. The hiring manager will call back because that interview counts. It's a mini interview. So in that mini interview, chances are the salary question will be covered there. Now, there's two questions I always ask. Where are you at now from a compensation standpoint? Where do you want to be? And those are really important questions, because even though the salary, the job description may say 60 to 70, you would not believe how many people would say, well, ideally, I'm hoping to be at 95.
Oh my God.
So it sounds like such an obvious question, but it's not. I mean, or you'll say, great, the position you've applied on is a sales position and it pays between 60 and 70. Can you tell me a bit more about what you're looking for? I've drawn that person to what the right answer is. You would not believe how many people would say, well, actually, I don't want sales. I want customer service and I'd like 90. I tell you, that happens so much. So that's why we actually do ask. And it is not all job descriptions do have the salary. Alberta, you do not have to put the salary. Provinces like British Columbia, you do. So it can be that you're dealing with a range. Now, for a lot of newcomers, they may be working on survival jobs or entry-level jobs just to get started. Most times in that case, the hiring manager will say, this role starts at 25 an hour. Is that within your range? So again, lots of people will say yes, but lots will actually say no. So we don't want to invest an hour of our time to say, come and see me, and we'll talk further if our salary doesn't align. So that's one of the key things that I look for in the telephone pre-screen.
So basically, in your opinion, let's say if a job description says that the range is from 60 to 70, if somebody is asked, so should they stay in that range, right? They shouldn't jump over 70. Just like...
True. So the question I always ask, there's two questions. Where are you at now? And that will be if you're already here and working, where are you at now from a compensation standpoint? Where do you want to be? So let's say that person is already at 65. They can say, well, great, I see from the posting, the top end is 70. I would like to be at that range. And if there's a potential for bonus or opportunity in the future, that does meet with my requirements.
Okay, I love this answer. It sounds cool. So you're staying in the range, but then you're saying, but if you can provide more, I don't mind, right?
And I do. I always say to people when I ask that, if people hesitate, because it's a bit of a sensitive topic. Where are you at now? Where do you want to be? If I sense that the job seeker is saying, I don't want to answer that question, then I'll say, listen, more is always better. So you tell me where are you hoping to be, and then we'll see what goalposts we need to be within. So
awesome. In some way you are saying if somebody says, well, I see your range, but I wouldn't mind for some race in the next 2 years, you won't turn that candidate down.
You have to be really careful though, that if money seems to be the only motivator, so you have to be careful. So I would just say I'm currently, so that's why I always say it's hard to argue with numbers, with math. Where are you at now? Great, I'm at 65. Where do you want to be? above that.
Okay.
So the top end of your scale is where I would like to be. But if you said, I'm at 65 now, but really I'd like to be at 90, chances are it's going to be over at that point. And we'll say, well, great. We completely understand you've got a great background, a great resume. Let me keep your resume on file for a more senior position. Let's keep in touch. And it's over at that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like it's good to know.
Yes.
But yes, like very often like people ask me that question, and I want to jump to a salary negotiation, but I
Yes.
think we should keep it like, till then. But now what I
Yeah.
want to ask you, because of course a lot of people, when they had one job interview, sometimes they have two job interviews, then they're frustrated because nobody calls them
Yes.
straight away the very
Right.
next day.
Yeah.
And I keep telling people, you have to understand it's not personal, because a lot of things might have been happening on the other side.
Yeah.
People might be busy, like they have like a family issue or something like that.
Right.
You don't know, it's not personal, but
Yeah.
I'm not the expert.
Right.
And today I have the expert, like, right? So like, and I know that a lot of
Yes.
viewers are curious.
Yeah.
So why HR people or hiring managers, they don't contact me right away?
Well, it depends on what part of the interview you're at. So if it is a pre-screen, then, and whether it's a pre-screen first or second, the one question, never leave the interview without asking, what are the next steps and what's the timing on those next steps? Then wait for that answer and then say, if I haven't heard from you by that day, may I call you?
Awesome.
And do.
Yeah.
Because most people don't.
Yeah.
And for 20 years, I've ended every interview with that. And it's rare when people actually do follow up. So,
Interesting.
So always ask the question. But to your point again, unfortunately, if you've been through that first pre-screen or that first interview and you don't get a call back, then really you have to look at your interview skills.
I see.
Because that is it. When there's so many people competing for jobs, you have to nail those interviews. And if you walk out and you haven't talked about your results and what you've delivered and what you can deliver for this company, then it's been a miss.
Yeah, and it's basically what you were saying, and I can echo that as well. When I was hiring some people, and two candidates, they were mostly alike.
Yes.
Like great experience and everything, but then small details, how they would appear on a Zoom camera,
Yes.
right? So from which place, if somebody was in their car, if somebody was in their very beautiful corner in their house, which
Yes.
I could see that they found like that white wall, and they put good lighting and everything, those small things. Like, what about thank you letters? Like, do you find them useful? Like some thank you note for the interview, a follow-up?
Yes, 1000%. In the first edition, I interviewed 14 Canadian executives and I asked them a few questions. One was, what would you like to see more from candidates? And what the number one answer was, follow up. And whether it is a thank you email at the end of the interview, or if you're interviewing in person and you give me your card, send an actual handwritten. No, outside of a Canada Post strike. So the only option is email.
And they strike a lot, right?
Yes. And these were CEOs that said, sending a handwritten, hand printed. I know I've had people ask that, but what if I don't do cursive? Print the card is okay. So a handwritten, hand printed card is the top. The top.
Interesting.
When two people are absolutely the same, that can win out every single time.
That can make a difference,
Absolutely.
which has a lot of sense. So yes, but basically yes, and as you said, and always ask for how people can contact you, what is the next step, and if something is not happening the way you expected, then of course you can ask and see what might happen.
Yeah. And in that follow-up chapter in the book, I do say follow up, but also if I say to you, if you reach me live and I'll say, great, first you have to make sure first name and last name. When did we interview and what was the job? I wrote a funny story about one morning I received calls from 5 or 6 gentlemen with the name Mike. Hi, it's Mike.
Yeah.
Or, which
Yeah.
one and which job were you?
Yeah.
So and that's that and as well, if you're nervous, you talked a bit about introverts, rehearse that out loud.
Yeah.
Leave your first name and last name on the voicemail when you're following up. What day did you interview? What job? Don't expect that I'm going to remember. I may have 17 jobs on the go. And just say, per our conversation, you gave me permission to follow up with you today on the status of the customer service role. I look forward to hearing from you. Leave your name again, leave your phone number, not once, but twice. And that will go a long way because no one does it. No one
Oh my
does
God.
it.
And and you think about that, it's so obvious, but in such a small thing, but like this is true, right? Even like myself, I would never think about that. Yeah, but it's
Yes.
like, yeah.
And then if you do reach me live and I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Lydia, we're going through budgets or there's another position or whatever happened," what I'm also listening for is your resilience. Right? I know you're going to be disappointed, but you'll say, "Thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking my call. When should I follow up with you again?" And I've had that happen with my internal hires where something has happened, it's delayed. And so what I'm listening, yes, check mark that you followed up. But number two, I'm really listening for how are you handling that I'm not offering you a job today? So I know I'm going to hear some disappointment, but I also just want to hear that optimism. It's your resilience that I'm looking for.
Oh my God, yeah, but it makes a lot of sense now. And like I have to tell you my story as well. So after I was let go, so I started applying with that great resumes and I started receiving a lot of calls. And then what happened, like almost after 2 or 3 weeks, I got my first job offer.
Amazing.
And I remember, and I look at that, I was like, well, the salary is not the way I wanted and everything. And then I remember I came to my husband who was born in Canada and he said, just decline it. And then I looked at the job offer. I was like, you don't understand. I'm an immigrant to Canada. Like for us, like, to decline a job offer, it's a lot. And he said, but like you might get another one. And then I talked to my career coach and she said exactly the same thing. And she said, you can decline a job offer. And I know for many viewers, they're struggling to get the job offer and then they see not what they expected. And sometimes it's not their mistake, because I had my second job offer also came through. And I was like, I think I mentioned my salary expectations. And then it came with much lower, right? So, and I don't think if it was a mistake of an HR manager as well, because they spend their time, I spend my time. And then like finally, yes, I declined my first job offer, but I started negotiating as well because my career coach advised me to do so. And then I was like, okay, it's not so scary as I thought it would be. So like if you can touch that, because like as I said, like a lot of people, they're waiting for this first job offer. And then when they see something different, what like was like maybe discussed in the interview, or numbers like different or benefits, then they feel like disappointed. And I'm pretty sure a lot of them, they actually accept it. Even like without trying to negotiate.
Sure. So again, I wrote a chapter on negotiating the job offer. So all of these are great topics and ones that I've written about. So the way you handled that perfectly. What you want to do, typically what will happen is that the HR manager will call you, or the hiring manager will call and say, great, I'd love to review the details of the offer. That's most common, rather than just saying, great, here's an email with the details. Let me know what you think. What most hiring managers will do is they'll call you and say, great, I'm pleased to present this job offer. Here's the title, here's the salary, here's the benefits, etc. That is your opportunity to say, great. And as you said, I do recall giving you the range that I'm looking at. So if the salary comes in below the range, first of all, be gracious, which of course everyone is. Thank you so much for this incredible job offer. As I mentioned in our first interview, I was really hoping to land on a salary between X and Y. Is there any room on this job offer? That's all you have to say.
I see. Like, and then
see
if they happens.
if they say no, that is it. There may be something in the job offer where they'll say, I do recall, it is below the salary. However, we have profit sharing. or we have an annual bonus structure, or we have benefits which actually equate to X amount of dollars. So don't always look at that, just the salary number. Look at and really, if the hiring manager hasn't said let's review this in person or over the phone, ask for that conversation. And that's where you can go into all of the other details on, because there can be amazing other parts to the offer outside of that salary.
I see. Oh, look,
Yeah.
our cat came. Yeah. That's nice. Yeah. Finally, he found you. Black cat and black outfit.
Oh my gosh.
This is very nice.
Oh my gosh, you went up?
I think he wants to be a part of this
That is
podcast.
brilliant.
Yeah, that's
Is
nice.
this Jasper?
Jasper, yeah.
Oh my gosh, you are beautiful. And his eyes match the carpet.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well
That's
done.
nice.
Well done
Yeah,
on the
I
cat
know.
matching the carpet. The detail.
Yeah.
Yes, you're beautiful.
So like with negotiation though, so like, and also phone call.
Yes.
So like even myself,
Yeah.
like I think my last phone call was like almost 4 years ago. It's when I accepted the job offer from Windmill. But like even after that phone call, I was like, I need to see when it's written. So
Okay,
how powerful the phone call in Canada when nobody calls you and
Yes.
they're saying we are pleased to offer you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so is the question then right after that, it should
Yeah.
be in writing. So
Yeah.
they will, if it is as presented, they'll send it to you. Or typically what companies do is they'll say, great, I'll call you at 2 and I'm just sending you the job offer now. Let's go through it.
Okay.
So yeah.
But then, like, let's say if it's
Yeah.
a difference of 2 days, so something when nobody calls and then they say, sorry, we just want to let you know, but we are so busy now, you should expect your job offer in 2 days. Should that person like drink some champagne and celebrate, or while it's not written, they shouldn't do that.
Champagne's always a good idea. But so at that point, a verbal offer, now, can that offer go away? Sure. Things can happen. But if a company is calling to make an offer, chances are the offer is coming. Now, things happen. Well, did the pandemic hit? If that was 2 days before the pandemic, the hit, well, maybe that job offer may not come out. Save the real celebration for when it's signed.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, stuff can happen, but it's rare. But if it's the verbal is sound, but the written is what you need. And it should come because remember, the hiring manager, once they've found you, they want you, they've given you a job offer. They want you to accept it. So that is your opportunity. If it is a bit wishy-washy, say, okay, help me understand. When we were talking earlier about how to ask questions, not why is it so low? Help me understand. Okay, help me understand. Walk me through the full compensation. I see that there's bonus, there's profit sharing. Walk me through those numbers. I'm new to Canada, so they're not necessarily ones that I'm completely familiar with.
I see.
Yeah.
What about like I'm thinking like now, so if I receive that phone call and then like yes, like a person who is on the receiving line, they feel like okay, it might not their greatest offer. Would it be fine just still like kind of accept it and then like later on to send a follow-up email, ask ChatGPT to help and be like, hey, I'm not so sure like this is in my salary range, maybe I want to clarify some profit sharing part of benefits. Is that fine?
Yeah. Once the conversation is over, once you've signed. So
before you signed, you can basically.
So you once it's signed, you cannot reopen the conversation then. So you have that window until your signature goes on the letter. Then consider the conversation closed and the deal is done. So any questions have to come before you sign. And sure, you could say, ChatGPT, how do I delicately ask if there's a negotiation room on? Sure, those are great. Print those questions, have them ready. I mean, ChatGPT can be great for something like that. But it is. And the other part is that if you've given a salary range, let's say between 60 and 70, let's say the offer comes in at 70, but in that conversation you then say, I'm really thinking I'd like 90.
then it's
That's
kind
not
of,
going to go over well. So you
Yeah.
have to keep with those
in
same
the
numbers.
range. You have to stay
Yes, you
in
can't
the
change your
range.
mind
Yeah.
after. So yeah, I did a full chapter on how to and what the no-nos are in negotiation. It's in the
Yeah,
book.
and as I said, people might
Yeah.
be surprised. Like it happened to me when my first job offer came through. I was like, I don't feel like it's very low and
Yeah.
everything. And then like I wrote an email. My husband back then helped me. It was not ChatGPT. And then like they actually came back and they increased a little bit.
Yeah.
But still I didn't feel that was the right thing
Yeah.
to do. And then I declined it, and it was hard. I can tell you,
Yes.
like as for many newcomers, like even for people who have been here for a while, like remembering our first pain to get that first job in Canada, right? And then, but like again, having a great career coach who would inspire you, who would encourage you and be like, listen, you got this first job offer, then the second one will come through. And then she was so right, like I got the second one, and again, it was not like the right for me for some reasons, and then I declined it, and I said, can you add some money, or can you add I don't remember what else I was asking for, and then they said unfortunately no, and then I politely declined. And then when the third job offer came through, and actually hiring manager called me, and then actually asked me what is your salary expectation, and and I was very honest. I said, listen, I know your range and I already declined 2 job offers. I'd like to be at the top of your range, I said. So I didn't say more, but I said, I want to have the top of your range. And the range was like 10,000 difference, right? So, and then they gave it to me. And then I was like, wonderful. And then I remember I wrote this LinkedIn post inspiring people. Yes, you are an immigrant here, but like, it's not just like an employer who finds you. You have to be sure that this is the right fit for you. But very often newcomers are so scared and they feel like I need to get this entry level job, and then they take whatever job, right? So they don't evaluate themselves quite high. And in some cases it's fine, but in some cases, especially I believe when you got this job offer, it means like, okay, especially so quick. So it means like you're a good employee, right? Or that famous word, like marketable, right?
Marketable, yes.
Marketable. Marketable,
yeah.
like
and go with your gut as you did.
Yeah.
Right? When you get it, if you go, oh my gosh, like, yay, I'm excited, pop the champagne. Great, then you've got it. But if it feels, and that was the exact wording I used in my book, if the offer feels wishy-washy,
okay,
then don't, right? Ask the question. The easy question is there any wiggle room on the base salary? Is there any room? And they'll tell you. I have clients that it's like, this is it. That is the very top end. That's it. So now let's talk about if you are working with a recruiter, which is the person who is working for finding you, but also our job is to find the right person with the client. So when I get a job offer for one of my job seekers from my business client, and it comes in and it's not the right offer, I will say to them, really? Do we have room? Because chances are this person is not going to accept this offer because their range top end was 70. So if we're coming in at 59, they're not going to accept it. And some people do like to play the negotiation game, and it is a bit of a game. I prefer clients who say, great, they want 70, here it is at 70. So it is, if you're working with a recruiter, they can help you to negotiate
that's nice.
Yes, they can help you to negotiate a really good offer.
How to find a recruiter? I'm pretty sure like a lot of people are wondering, and also how recruiters find their candidates as well.
And as I sound like a broken record, there's a chapter on that in the book too, because
that's nice
it's very misunderstood. So people think that, great, if I need to find a recruiter to help me find a job, that's not how we work.
Interesting.
So, and most everyone thinks that way. So the best way to work with a recruiter is to find a job that a recruiter has posted that they are working on, or that's their vertical, because we earn our fees from the corporate client. So the corporate client comes to us to say, I need a vice president of business development. I need an accounts payable manager. So we our motivation is to go to market to find that person that matches the exact skill that our clients are looking on. So if I have all accounts payable jobs and you're an engineer and you're wanting my time and attention, you're not going to get my time or attention because I don't have any engineering jobs. So always go to find a recruiter that works in the type of job that you're looking for, or that they have one posted that aligns perfectly.
Oh my God, it makes a lot of sense. Just literally recently, nobody asked me at an event, and they asked me this question. Like, they were like, I don't understand why recruiters don't answer. So they are looking for a person for doing this specific job, and then I send them a message, I send them 10 messages, they don't answer. Like, can you spread some clarity on this?
It would be that their resume doesn't look like they align to that job. That's it.
And so it's gonna be like going back to base one.
Base one is it is the two-step resume formula. If they have a rusty, old school functional resume, that does nothing to get me excited unless there are specific companies that really stand out. Then I may get excited, but otherwise it will be next. So go back to those less than 11 seconds. Now it comes back to the resume. If the resume doesn't get me excited, you're not going to get a call.
I see. Okay, but let's say, look, how nobody can let recruiters know that they're looking for a job. Like, let's say they're very active on LinkedIn. Like, should they put some sign open to recruitment or something?
Yep. We do spend a lot of time digging in LinkedIn. So make sure
if you could tell more about
make
this.
sure your profile is open. I'm always astonished at job seekers that have a closed profile. When you hit contact info, there's no phone number, there's no email address. You want to be easy to be approached. Also, locking down your profile so that you can only follow someone versus message them. So make sure your profile is completely open. So
What about that sign? Like, for example,
open for work.
That sign. But are there any hidden signs? Because some people they might have an employer now, but then they're looking around. Are there any tools on LinkedIn that they can put that they're open to new offers?
There are settings when you can be contacted by recruiters. So of course, if you're gainfully employed right now, you don't want to put that sign up. You don't want to compromise your current position. So just having an open profile, not with that green banner, but just an open profile with your phone number, with your email address, so that a recruiter can reach you. That's all you need to do.
This is great. And of course, since I'm having you today and I'm trying to squeeze in as many questions I have heard for the last year. But of course, people are wondering, what are the main mistakes? And maybe you can share some funny stories of biggest mistakes, some funny stories of successes as well, right?
Yes.
So that would be awesome.
Absolutely. So biggest mistakes. Oh my goodness, where do I start? Okay, this one every single day at all career levels, newcomers and locals. All of my job postings have an email address. So biggest mistake people make, they type in my email address, hit the paperclip, add their resume, and hit send. Not a single word in the email.
Not hello.
Nothing.
Oh, surprising.
I cannot
shocking.
Tell you, it is shocking. And again, you think, oh, that's just a junior mistake. No, it is. That happens at all career levels. It's been in both of my books. So I've been seeing this for 15 years. So you need to, not that an email has to have a lot of detail, but it should have a basic greeting. Here's the job that I'm looking for, and here's my resume, my phone number, something. And I have all kinds of scripts in my book. So that is a huge mistake. Another one that newcomers make, and this is a very, very common one. Again, a lot of newcomers can be looking for that survival job, which of course you need a job. You need to get working as soon as possible. The big mistake is calling and saying, I want any job. And that is such a bad answer. So then I usually will be a bit cheeky and say, well, great, I've got an opening for a nurse practitioner, an EMT coordinator, a forklift operator, and a cook. And they're like, well, actually, I'm looking for a housekeeping job. So any job is a really bad answer. And I know that
Yeah.
people, particularly newcomers, are wanting just like anything. I'll do anything. But anything is a really bad answer. The other one is, and again, every single day, and I admire newcomers who, again, may be struggling with the language, but they're picking up the phone to call to say, I am looking for a job. The one thing that almost everyone does, I said, great, so, perfect. Let's say you are looking for an emergency response position, whatever it is. And I'll say, great, send your resume to jobs@hideseekfind.com. And they will say, well, I don't have a pen. And
Yeah,
that
like,
makes my head
yeah,
explode. You
because
can, like, what do you want me to say? I'm so glad you called. I'll send you an offer letter right now.
yeah,
Like, you need
you
you
have
need a
to have a
pen.
pen.
You
Yeah,
need
like,
a pen. I sound
like,
old school. A
yeah,
pen, or be able to type it down. Or people will say, great, can you text me? No,
yeah.
no,
No, no, no.
no.
Like, I don't have time.
No. So,
Yeah,
so just taking that ownership that if you are
yeah.
calling, make sure you're ready to take down the details, because it's not like I'm going to offer you a job on the spot. Other mistakes I see newcomers make is using multiple names. Now, we know in different cultures, you use a lot of, in Canada, we essentially have two names, first and last.
And Mike.
And Mike, six Mikes of no last name. So
Yeah,
what you need to, so, and again, that
yeah.
it is a cultural difference. So in Canada, we use two names, first name, last name. So when you are applying for a job, and if you have emailed and you're following up, and good for you if you are, and if you say your name is Mike Smith, we'll
Yeah,
use Mike.
yeah.
But Mike Smith actually also goes by Mike Jones. So I'm looking in my email for Mike Smith, but then he'll say, well, actually, I also go by Mike Jones. You need to pick one name and consistently go by that name, and make sure your email displays as that one and only name.
And probably your resume as well, and your cover
Exactly.
letter if you want to have
Yes.
one.
So it needs to be that same name. So a lot of different cultures use two different last names, but be consistent with that same first. The first name is usually the same. It's just altering two or three different last names. So use the same name. And then also, if you have a difficult to pronounce name, when we call, we want to make sure that we're doing our very best to say your name correctly. And I gave this example in my book. I was working with a candidate who has the beautiful name of Guillermo. And it is Guillermo is how it's spelled. And so I thought, hi, Sheila, calling from Tag Recruitment. Can you tell me how to properly say your first name? And he said, Guillermo. And then he said, just think of it as Geearmo. And I'm like, okay, brilliant. And he said, put that on your resume in brackets if you have a difficult to pronounce name. We just want to pronounce it right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, and it sounds
Yes.
very good. But those are amazing, like, like those mistakes. Yeah.
Oh, they happen every single day. Other things, of course, coming from different countries. My hair stands more on end than it is when I see people putting their social insurance, marital status, religion,
a picture.
picture.
Yeah.
None of it. Don't do any of it. So I did see one it was actually last week, that it had everything. And I felt so badly. I could see that this person was very new. So I called her and I said, like, immediately take off your marital status, how many children, you cannot put your religion, and take your picture off. So it was all of it. All of it.
And I was there. When I
Yeah.
came to Canada, my resume had my marital status, my picture, and my age and everything.
And age, no.
And thank God, like, I had a very good mentor who said, nope,
Nope, no.
it doesn't go there.
Yeah. The other one that drives me a bit bonkers with newcomers, being given bad advice. So many newcomers are incredibly well educated in their home country. Leave your education on.
Oh, yeah.
Leave it on. I remember being at a newcomer job fair earlier this year and speaking with a number of newcomers who had law degrees and practice law in their home country, and they had taken it off. And I said, no, that's a bonus. to any employer in Canada, even though, of course, you're not practicing law, but that's a bonus because that tells me you can write, you can research, you're smart, you can put together briefs, you can do all of the soft skills that come with it. So that drives me bonkers. So if any of your viewers have been told to take their education off, put it back on.
Because
Put it
sometimes
back on.
they're told that because they're told, well, you would sound overqualified,
No,
right? But
it's a bonus.
yeah.
Accounting degrees are the ones that really that I will say to job seekers, newcomer job seekers, you have a degree in finance. The way even if you're adding in your native language, the way we add in Canada is exactly the same way. So it drives me crazy that that advice is being given. It's such a bonus to a company to have someone, even if is at a junior position that has that advanced education, leave it on.
And this is great, because
Yeah.
it leads me to my next question as well, because just recently I was told that these days some people, they don't put their country. So for example, they
Okay.
list like their previous experience and they don't put the name of the country where that company is located. And for me, it was like something new. Have you
Okay.
heard anything about that? Because like for me, I used to put like, okay, so I
Yeah.
worked for that company and it was in Russia, because I wanted the recruiter to know that actually that I was from Russia. But then like people told me that no, like they don't do that, and then they believe they have more chances to get a job interview. And even one person, he told me that he went to a job interview and the recruiter told them, well, like we would prefer to see that actually more Canadian experience. And it was hard for me to believe. I actually got into an argument. I was like, I took HR here,
Yes.
like at Bow Valley College, and like I finished human resources. And I said it's very hard for me to believe that a recruiter would say that.
I agree.
So, but what do you think about not putting the country like?
Well, if you were brand new to the country, to Canada, your previous out of country experience is really important. So I would say that would be a big gap.
I see.
I would leave the city country on, and same with education. I have heard that with education. I'm just going to put university. Well, then recruiters were after gaps. So which university was it? In what country? What city was it in?
I
so
see.
make your I would. That's a very bizarre comment that feedback that your job seeker heard. I would feel fine putting what out of country experience you've had. And
I see.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense. But, and yes, and I agree with you. And I'll take advantage, like some advantage here as well.
Yeah.
So for me, I've been in Canada almost more than 11 years.
Yes.
And now, like, of course, I don't want to look for another job. I'm very happy with Windmill Microlending, where I work for. But now I understand that if I ever need to look for another job, then because I've been here 11 years, so my Russian experience won't fit into those 2 pages of my resume. Do you still think I should have it somewhere? My education or something because my experience now mostly would be from Canada for the last 11 years.
So that there's a lot of things I can share on that one. One is that your resume doesn't have to go back to the beginning of time. But if your Russian experience from, let's say, 15 years ago is very relevant and helps to talk about your career story, leave it, but don't go back to the beginning of time. So resumes, and I've seen resumes like, okay, the funniest resume I ever saw, ever worked with, the person went back to junior high. Don't go. So go back 10, maximum 15 years.
Yeah,
now we do have to be aware of dates because dates can tell our age. So with education, for any newcomers where high school is still on, take it off once you have post-secondary. Post-secondary will never go off your resume, but once the dates of graduation are 10 years in the rearview mirror, take the date off. Take the date off. Similarly, while we're on age, so do not use your year of birth or your age in your email address. That's a bad idea. And then again, just be cognizant of the dates. So as your resume goes on and your career goes on, just keep in mind that 10 to 15, don't go back further than 15 years. Now, back to the other point you made, which is a really good point, 2 pages. That people think that is the end all be all. It's not. I worked with a senior executive one of my coaching clients. His resume spanned multiple countries, multiple languages. It was off the charts. When he first came to me as a resume coaching client, he had been in Canada for a few years. His resume was 14 pages long.
Wow.
14. I almost didn't take him on. I thought, I've met my match. I cannot. But we applied. And again, he was very senior. We applied the 2-step resume formula, made it very easy to understand. And his roles were highly complex. We got his resume down to 4 pages. Now, 4, in his case, as an executive, was absolutely okay. Because again, it was very targeted and filled with successes. Very, very targeted, easy to understand. Now, people also make the mistake of saying, oh, I need to cram everything into 1 page. No. The only time you need 1 page is if you are just out of college or university with no experience. 2 is absolutely ideal, but for any mid-career professional, 3 is actually okay.
Awesome.
As long as you are not filling it with those mind-numbing bullets. So promise me, you get a big check mark if you are filling it with results. Then 3 pages is okay.
Yeah.
So then also just on the page length, what people do, silly mistake, don't do this. They're at 2 pages and they're like, oh, I need to keep my resume to 2 pages. So what do? They take the margins on the left and right, pull them out as far as they can. The words are just about dripping off the sides of the page. They still have a couple of words on page 3. So what do? They take the top and the bottom margin, pull them out. Don't do that, because in those 11 seconds, we need white space to skim. So don't worry.
Okay.
So if you need the white space in order for someone to quickly read your resume. If you fill every inch of that paper with words, it actually works against you.
Awesome.
So-
And that's great. So
Yeah.
we've talked about mistakes and
Yes.
everything, like maybe a success story,
Yes.
especially if an immigrant was involved.
Yes. I have a brilliant one. Okay. So as I shared with you earlier, I had my book translated into Ukrainian.
Yeah.
When the war broke out in Canada, we saw all of the images and I just felt I needed to do something to help. So I had my book translated. I don't speak the language. I had it translated to Ukrainian. And I went to Fiverr, cool platform. But again, I don't speak the language. So I thought, I better have this double checked. So I put out to Facebook, hey friends, does anyone know a newcomer that speaks fluent English and Ukrainian? Because I need someone to proofread my book, because I wanted to make sure there weren't any inappropriate phrases tucked in and I would never know. So within a minute, I had a referral from a friend, and she said, my next door neighbor just welcomed a newcomer from Ukraine, and she has a degree in linguistics. So I met
Perfect.
her at Market Mall, and I handed over my manuscript in the food court and said, please, I trust you with this. So she was amazing. So first of all, of course, my book is called Hired: How to Get the Zippy Gig, Insider Secrets from a Top Recruiter. So in her beautiful accent, she's called me within 20 minutes and said, what is this word zippy? And I'm like, oh my gosh, that is such a great question. I said, give me a minute, I'll come back. So then, she did a beautiful job of proofreading, and she said, yep, I need to change some words. Great, I trust you. So she did the final proofread. Terrific. I uploaded to Amazon. The book was almost ready to go live. Then I got a call from a client, controller for a major organization. And she said, I have the weirdest job. I need someone who's a bit admin, someone who can write reports, someone who's got a little bit of finance, just like a bit of everything. So I'm like, well, my proofreader, I had seen her resume. So she was a newcomer from Ukraine. So I called her and I said, Alicia, I've got a job, but your resume stinks as is. So you've read my book in both English and Ukrainian more than once. I redo your resume and send it to me. So bless her heart, she did. She sent it to me. I'm like, well done. Like, you are a good study. Your resume looks beautiful. So I sent it to the controller, and she said to me, my word, this is the best resume I've ever seen. And I said, Yeah, because I write books on the
Yeah.
topic. So then I explained what Alicia had done. So she went in, did an interview, and she started on a 3-month temporary assignment. At the end of that time, she was hired permanently with that
That's cool.
organization. And she and I just connected on LinkedIn. She's now a permanent resident. She's now in Canada forever, and she is now in a junior accounting role.
That's cool.
So,
Such a success
yeah,
story.
it was a great one. But I said to her, yes, read my book in Ukrainian and in English. So it does, like that formula. I'm so passionate, particularly for newcomers, when everything is scary and unknown and interviews are scary and hard and you're thinking in a different language. This resume formula makes such a big difference, and it will land your viewers interviews, and I guarantee it's going to make interviews much easier.
Awesome. That's great. So what would be your final advice to all, you've given a lot, but what would be the very final one?
Oh my gosh. Well, outside of do your resume in that formula. It is do the resume in that formula. Don't skip preparing for interviews. Do the follow-up at the end. Make sure you are following up. Write the card. Do your research on LinkedIn. Make sure you're accessible on LinkedIn. And now references. We haven't touched on references. Never give your references unless they're asked. I always laugh at that awkward end of interview moment where I'm like, thank you for coming in. No further questions. Any for me? Great. Thank you again. And then the candidate slowly slides the references across the table. Don't do that. It's awkward and weird. Don't do that. Wait for the hiring manager to ask for your references. Here's why. As the job seeker, as you referenced earlier, I'm in the dark. I don't know. Am I still in consideration for the role? Where am I at? By being in control of your references, when I'm interested in you, I'm going to ask you for your references. And so what you want to say at that point is, wonderful. I'm going to reach all of my 3 references to let them know that you will be calling to share a reference for me for the customer service role. And then what you do is once I say to the hiring manager, once I reach everyone, I will send their details. They will then be expecting your call. So automatically you are now sounding a little bit different than the one that's sliding the references across the table. Then, of course, say to your references, call me, text me, tell me when you've completed the reference. So great. You now know that all 3 of your references, 2 or 3 of your references have been contacted. You can then call the hiring manager to say, I've heard from all of the references. They loved the conversation with you. It seems like we're at the end of the process. Is there anything else that you need from me in order to make a decision?
This is great, because I think a lot of people, and it's so great that you brought it up, because a lot of people, sometimes even they provide a list of references, but they don't talk to people.
Right.
And literally what just happened recently, at my company, somebody reached out to us and they were asking to clarify an employment of a specific person. Somebody else picked the phone, a new person, and they said there is no record of that person, right?
Wow.
So because again, I think what happened, maybe that person, they provided a name and that person was not with the company anymore, something like that. So yes.
And you do want to check, well, when you do provide a reference, you of course assume that they're going to say great things about you. That should happen.
But sometimes it doesn't happen.
But you should have a good relationship with the referee to make sure that they do. And that's why it's always important to ask, can I provide a reference? And if you're unsure, then say, will it be a good one?
Yeah.
That's okay to ask. I had, and here's case in point. So we also do a lot of temporary staffing. So I get called often for references. But in this one case, this gentleman worked for us for about 5 minutes. It never went to work, but he used me as a reference and didn't call me because I would have said, based on our history here, we have sent you out on 10 assignments and you went to 1. What would you like me to say? So he didn't do that step. So this reference called me and said, could I get a reference for this person? And I said, oh, okay, let me pull up. So I pulled up his file and I said, do you need someone to go to work every day? And they said, well, yes. And I'm like, then he's not your guy. And so if he had called me, I would have been brutally honest and
Yeah.
said, you didn't go to work. So I'm not sure what you would like us to say. So
Yeah.
it's always good to have that conversation, but be in control of your references, because that's also another way that you can be a standout candidate, is say, I've reached all of them. They know that you will be calling and that I'm really excited about this customer service role. So then you're just showcasing how prepared you are and how different you are from other candidates.
This is great. I think like you've nailed it, like for many of the people like know today. But
Yeah.
yes, it's like it's so amazing to have you here. And as I always, I think I've mentioned that also that like I met you, I think 3 years ago or something like that. And even we were not connected, but I attended one of your sessions, and
Okay.
then like I loved that. And then like 3 years later, like I saw you again at one of the podcasts, and I was like, oh, we should connect. And I'm so happy that you're here today, and it was so valuable, like every word of you. And I'm pretty sure like people who would order your book, like they would find a
Yeah.
lot of things like which might help them to land this first job offer, right?
Absolutely.
So like how people can contact you
Yeah.
if like they desire to do so.
Perfect. LinkedIn. I'm
Yeah.
easy to find on LinkedIn. I have two websites. The website with my book, career coaching, one-on-one coaching, is my name, SheilaMusgrove.com. And hopefully you'll put that in the video.
Oh, of
Yeah,
course, like we can
amazing.
do
But
that
yeah,
for sure.
I'm easy to reach. I am like what the recommendations I give for job seekers,
Yeah.
be easy to find. I'm very easy to find. You can contact me through WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn.
That's
I'm there.
cool.
I'm everywhere. So I always
Yeah.
find that funny when
Yeah.
people say, I can't find you. I'm like, your research skills probably aren't very good if you can't find me. I'm an open book. Just Google my name and I'm there.
Awesome. Like, thank you so much, Sheila,
Oh,
for
my
being here
pleasure.
today.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.